Today we're going to be talking about the State of Agile in 2020. About 4 to 5 weeks ago, Digital AI, they're a newly formed company. 3 companies came together. Version 1, who's been coming out for the past 14 years. This would be the 14th year of the State of Agile report, where they do a comprehensive global survey, really diving deep into and seeing what the trends are, seeing what the market's having. Came out, I think it was May 28th, with the State of Agile report. As we get started here, just curious for the attendants that are online, a quick little survey. We'll come back to this a little bit later to kind of benchmark against where the findings were coming in, as there's quite a lot of movement within the different industries. So in the chat box, feel free to enter in as many as you want, but which areas of your organization do you feel have adopted Agile principles and practices? Are you prominently seeing it in IT, or are you now moving towards operations, marketing, finance, HR? All right, cool. Because this will be on the back end of the presentation. What I'm going to be doing is kind of giving a viewpoint of trends that have emerged in the past several months because of, 1, COVID, but 2, safe, scaled Agile frameworks. They've come out with their version 5, which folded in business agility, which is a trend that in order to make your value stream management practices really flow, and to really get that bang for your buck from a holistic view across your enterprise and organizations, you really need to have it going across all the different that have traditionally been within IT, but now we're seeing growing trends across all these different business lines. So a little bit about myself. My name is Steve Lazarick. I've been working in the, I would say it's a hybrid. It's a global IT and business startups, an enterprise architect. I've worn many different hats, from legal to compliance to audit to developer, engineer. Throughout my career, I've done a number of startups, dozens and dozens of new products, from conception to scaling it to enterprise, and then bringing it to market. I've done that successfully within the financial services, insurance, educational, governmental, and aerospace sectors. Over here, you'll see I have a number of different certifications. Back in November, I was with my current assignment. I've been doing a lot of transformation over the years, and I've seen the growth of SAFE, and really believe in the practices and the models in which it implies, and where Agile is growing from in a true movement. Decided really to take my learnings and what I have, and now I'm teaching online courses, and we'll get to that a little bit later, and teamed up with 10 Agile as we bring a lot of this to the market. A couple upcoming classes I have going are for DevOps this upcoming weekend, as well as the 11th, if you're interested in that. On the product side of the house, for people that might be product managers or project managers that really want to get into SAFE and understand how that fits into the new business model, business agility. July 18th, holding a course on that also. You can go out to 10 Agile classes. We have weekly classes that are posted, and you can see a lot of different offerings. We have a lot of talented SPCs and trainers, so feel free to go there. We also do a number of these webinars and meetups. So continue to look for those for any courses that you're interested, as well as if there's anything that you might want to learn about, feel free to reach out to myself or 10 Agile, and we'll do what we can to assist. So as I was briefly saying before, the State of Agile report, this is the 14th year that they're actually doing this, and it comprises of over 1,100 IT and business professionals from around the globe. Going back over the years, they've surveyed over 40,000, executive practitioners, consultants, and it has now become the go-to, model and findings of a report of its kind in the industry. And a number of people have always looking for this when it first comes out and see where things are going. The thing that's interesting that makes this year kind of a little bit different is, given what's gone on with the world, this report runs until December. So the findings that you'll see are kind of date stamped, at 12/31, 2019. However, I've also run other models where I've gotten additional statistics on where things have been going, potential impacts or trends that we're seeing emerge as the fully remote forced work from home model is going into play or has been in play. So today, some topics we'll go through. I'll get into the survey background, kind of like look inside the numbers, because when you, and I'll also I'll share at the end, if you actually want to download the report, you can do that from Digital AI. I'll give you the link. I'll put it in the chat box also for you. We'll also be posting this out on 10 Agile's website if you want to refer back to it or share it with a colleague. So we'll get into really, the most popular Agile tools, methodologies, frameworks. What are the trends? What are the challenges that practitioners and companies face with adopting and then scaling Agile? Because those are two totally different things. And then at the end of the day, how do you measure success when you have your Agile initiatives? And I'll kind of get into that because, if you go back 5 years where waterfall is still very much the the practice, the way in which you measure success there is a different methodology and practice as opposed to Agile. I'll then get into, what are the COVID-19 impacts? What do we expect next? What trends do we see? And then kind of looking ahead. And then, as I mentioned before, there's some SAFE courses coming up this weekend. We have 3 or 4 webinars slotted over the next probably 4 weeks. And then going into August, we're planning those currently. So what's the state of Agile in 2020? So when you kind of look at the survey, as I was saying before, CollabNet version 1, they came together with 2 other companies to form Digital AI. So it's rebranded, so to speak. When you look at the respondents from across industries, and that's what this represents, this first slide. So I'm getting into like kind of the demographics just to lay the groundwork so you understand when you start seeing the trends that come out of this. Technology, no surprise there, 27%, and financial services also, holds pretty high. And then the numbers start trailing here. Now, what I see as for next year and the year ahead, where we should start seeing some pops without question, is healthcare and pharmaceuticals. I would expect to see that move up into the 10s to teens. Education, I would see that also moving up as this grows out, and potentially the governmental sector and insurance. So these numbers should start blending and increasing as the report becomes more prominent, as now the sectors here are kind of everything is converging in today's world. So some demographic observations here. This year more so than in past, as you look here, the respondents in the past have been, it would be saying, let's say 50% would say a project manager, whereas the trend now that's coming about is you're seeing it's more role-based. And what I mean by that is the model of Agile itself is more role-based. You talk of Scrum Masters versus, product owners versus release train engineers. Those are totally different than your traditional project manager or technical manager. So as this starts evolving over the next 2-3 years, and it's already starting to happen within job recs that you'll start seeing on LinkedIn and other forums, the titles themselves of when they go and you're looking for different positions or within your companies, the trend will be, it won't say project manager in the 3-4 years. It'll strictly say Scrum Master. It'll strictly say product owner, delivery manager. The size of the organization, this is very interesting here too. So when you think of scaling, it happens in kind of two different pockets. You have less than 1,000 people because startups by design, it's easier to change as you go, adapt the methodology, almost just by instinct in the Agile model. So you move in interactive processes. And then as companies grow and they really scale it, for example, like Coca-Cola, you then can start getting your release trains and really doing your scrum of scrums and your really large scale movements. And that's representative of these two pockets that we see here, as opposed to the numbers in between. But this kind of just gives you a sampling of the percentages that came in. So where did we get all the results from? Have those 1,100? As we look from last year to this year, there was a 6% increase globally that were actually outside of North America. So we're seeing the trend, grow across the globe. We also see that the percentage of software organizations, having more than 1,000 people increased, whereas, you had 1,000 decrease. When you look at this, and this is where it's kind of very interesting. What I would actually love to see is a little subset section of this, because Asia here, you have India, and India by itself is in a totally different level of adoption and maturity as opposed to the rest of Asia. And when you have, roughly 1 billion people living there, and the models in which, the global market follows, it would be really interesting to see that broken down. I would also like to see North America versus Canada, and then different subsections of Europe even, because if you go to Germany or Poland, you have very, very mature Agile practices as opposed to other parts of Europe. But again, this gives you a kind of a high level of where things are and where things are trending. So earlier I asked you about this, and about a week or so ago, I ran a really quick, just trying to get a sense of what's going on. Probably about 75 people right back, because the level of adoption here as opposed to what we just saw. And, just get a sense, as when we're looking on here, most of the people are from IT or software development. What we got back was, predominantly software development had a good section here, and same with IT. But the trend, and then this is what's starting to come about, is finance. And again, because of COVID, people are really having to flex and move quickly to adopting to, well, maybe in the past you might have met in person or everything was done in email, but now you might need to work towards a Kanban board, or how do you keep track of tasks that are going on, and start moving forward. I've seen some recent reports, and I'll get to this in a future webcast, of within marketing. There's a report now that's coming out there. It's the third one of its kind. About 2 weeks ago it came out. But it was very interesting because it showed that even marketing, even though this says 18%, whereas later on you'll see it's about 7% of the findings within the 14th report. Marketing is quickly moving towards Agile. But it's split down the line between that and your traditional waterfall. So something to think of as you move forward. This year versus next year, I'm very curious to see what comes out within it, just because of the state of the world, if things are changing and what needs to go in place. So a little bit of background and some of the inside the numbers here. By design, what happens within organizations is the length of time it takes to get your company up and running, so to speak, for full digital transformation and Agile to be adopted across the organization. 3 to 5 years is where you really start seeing the maturity levels take place, and that's what's representative within here. The next slide, I'll get a little bit further deeper into this. Within the first year, it's slow to go. You get a little bit better the second year, second year. 3 to 5 is when you start gaining your traction. When you start hitting the 5th year is really, you can truly see how much it grows that much faster. So 82% of respondents indicated that not all of their companies have adopted Agile practices, signaling that there's still growth to come at the enterprise level. But here's a very interesting thing. So I went back, I looked at it a couple years ago, went back to 2015, and back then it was 9% was saying all of their teams were Agile. And so if you think about it, within 4 years, because this is as of 2019, 12/31/2019, it's doubled. So if you think of that, how quickly it's moving. And again, when you look at the areas that are practicing Agile, no surprise here, 37% software development, IT, then you fall off here of operations, marketing, HR, and sales. But again, where I'm seeing where this is going to move is as companies become more holistic, because just by design with Agile, and as teams grow and you scale, you have to bring in operations, you have to bring in marketing within your IT to make it work. So you got to look at it from a holistic view for the whole organization. And what this is representative of is it's still unfolding as of right now. So we're still within here as we go up here. So it's one thing to think of here is, for that daily improvement, it's critical that you go through by design, the adoption and feedback loops in order to make it grow. Oops. And this was a very interesting slide I recently saw. just the concept itself is from 1962. But as you look back over the last, let's say 10 years, and I'll give you a little bit of a history here. If you think of Scrum, you know, this right now, you're kind of up in here. It's had from like 2005 to now, so you're looking at 10 plus years. So, you're very much mature with that concept. Scaled Agile, same thing. We're now on our 5th generation of that concept. DevOps, we're about 10 years in. And as that matures, now what's coming into the early adopters right now is DevSecOps. And that in itself, I'm seeing is going to, just by pure measures, it needs to grow quickly, given the state of the world and where things are. Just because of the nature of everything now being remote, there's a lot more potential holes or issues that were not realized in the past because of the remote work. Value stream management, this is also very much in its early stages of maturity. And again, business agility is something that now is just starting to get talked about in the industry, or industries, should I say. And this is a key area. These two, I would see in the next 2 to 3 years, really starting to lift as companies, with how fast things are going to be moving digitally across business lines. These two, without question, the VSM and the business agility, are a very good place if you're looking to learn or grow. Scaled Agile has a lot of great material on their website that you can look into, or we could assist with you on that. But this would be a very good thing to look into it and read and research if you're not familiar with them. So what's trending based on the results? Culture. It's it's coming again. It shows up on all the reports. Safe and Scrum. Scrum and Safe are the two prominent methodologies and frameworks. And adaptability and visibility is what's also happening. So when we go out here and we're looking at, what's the most popular, I think it's close to like 75% are working in some sort of Scrum, Scrumban, or hybrid model. And then as you're also looking back, extreme programming, that was very popular, back in the 90s, early 2000s. So what are the different techniques? No surprise here: daily stand-ups, retrospectives, you get your iteration planning, your Kanbans, release planning. This is interesting here. It's at 51%. I would see this probably starting to trail down as your DevOps gets more mature, and you start going release on demand, and it starts moving by design. It should push itself down. Whereas story mapping, I would see increase. How would you closely rate your organization's agility maturity? And then I can give you again a quick snapshot of a survey I did about 2 weeks ago. Again, this is current timing. We got some experimentation. We got some agile pockets. So, to be expected here, we got no agile initiatives at 3%. So that's kind of interesting. When we think back to, and again, I'll come back to that that bill curve that I was showing you. Experimenting, first thing you need to really do to see if it works, you start with your teams, and if it works there, you start with the next team and so on. You might be thinking about it, right? It's always important. And then, as the practices, you start growing here. But, this is, again, this 3 to 5 year is the term here. So what type of challenges experienced when adopting, at the very top here, it's very interesting because just from the Agile Manifesto, and when you think from your own perspectives, what usually happens when you're trying to take a company through transformation? You could have a company of 500, you could have a company of 100,000. Is really people are kind of set in their ways. Our way is is different. This will never work. So your general resistance to change, and then you always need your top down leadership to make sure that everybody's on board, because when you're going agile, you're going from the team level up. So if you don't have your leadership making sure that this is the way we're going and let's go, then people are less resistant to actually get on board, because then for different reasons, usually because it affects you're scared or out of fear because of your review, or you might be singled out, or different silos that are going on. Inconsistency across processes and practices. Again, when I was talking earlier about holistic views, that's where you have the best of all worlds. When people start sharing their ideas, you start experimenting. There's always great things that come out of those. The culture, again, so no surprise at the top here of what's going on. But a very interesting thing is this traditional development method. So when you go back to 2015, and what this represents is waterfall. So this number has dramatically gone down year after year. This was up here, back in 2015. Now we're down to 30%. The trend should continue to go down over the next several years, as companies are now realizing that in order to grow and keep up with the pace of technology and to keep up with the pace of competition and innovation, it has its place. But in order to rapidly grow, the Agile movement, it's proven that it is the way. It's not the future, it's the now. So again, why would you adopt it? And I was briefly just getting to this. So if you talk software, of course, you're going to accelerate your software delivery. A key element here, though, is the ability to manage and change your priorities. So if you think about just the past several months, the world stopped on a dime, and if companies weren't ready, they might have had to really pause their business. Or there's other companies that were ready for it, and they were able to pivot and move and adapt, and they quickly got their workforce working remotely. If you get the proper tools in place, your productivity will increase, your ability to collaborate will increase. In a prior webinar, I was talking about different tools and technologies, and if you think of email, that is probably going to be gone. Like, it will be an afterthought in the next 5 years, as Slack or Teams or whatever the next chat box that hooks all your different tools together become integrated and aligned. So again, very interesting here. Reason for adopting, you see project risk. this is kind of interesting because from the true perspective of within Agile, it's okay to take risks. I'm kind of that one kind of sticks out to me when I'm looking at this. But the one that really I'm trying to understand here is the 31%, because what should occur when you adopt Agile and it comes from the team level and it really starts to gain momentum and it spreads throughout the organization is your team morale should dramatically go up. That, it'll improve your culture, it'll improve your visibility, your traceability, your sense of we're all on the same team type of thing. So this is one to watch here as companies now are moving out of the, we're experimenting, we're trying it, and it really starts taking hold. Maybe 2 years from now, we'll see this morale jump to 50%. So this should be indicative of the other results. It should grow as the other results and the maturity levels increase. So here, as I was mentioning in the very beginning of the webinar, there's really two prominent methodologies currently. Scrum, that is, it's at 16%. What that really works is at the team level. Scrum of scrums is when you start moving to the program level. As you start to really try to scale from that, you start hitting different levels where then Scaled Agile Framework has really become the go-to. It's increased to 35%. I see that as the trend that's going to continue without question within the scaled perspective. As they've brought in, again, the version 5 with the business agility back in January of 2020, it just works. It's as companies come in and they really start saying, okay, how do we take the value stream management from concept to cash? We start aligning all of our different teams. It's got the enterprise, it's got the portfolio management, it's really got all of them. If you're interested in learning more, again, reach out to 10 Agile. We're doing everything from the team level to DevOps to the product owner. There's probably 15 different certifications that are currently coming out of here, and it's becoming very much a sought after certification in multiple industries. It's kind of like when you think of how much the PMP held its weight over the years, it's now moving, and it's moving very quickly to companies are looking for people with certifications in SAFe or training in SAFe. So DevOps, 76% of the respondents stated that they currently have a DevOps initiative in their organization, or they're planning one in the next 12 months. This is up 3% from last year. Yes. And then, the importance of a DevOps transformation. You got 10% saying it's not important, somewhat important, 26% important, very important. If you go back again 5 years ago, these numbers were very much flip-flopped because as companies have begun to adopt the DevOps, where DevOps is where you bring development and operations both to the table. You are working together in conjunction instead of in pockets, so that iteratively you get more quickly to market different automation or different products. I see this as one that's going to continue to grow as we keep going. DevSecOps, I mentioned earlier, I would start to see, hopefully in the next report, definitely within 2, they start calling out that specific next level of DevOps. InfoSecOps is another element that as the growth of this and the trends keep continuing with the transformations, those are metrics that they should start trying to measure against. So in the end of so how do you gauge your success and your metrics within Agile transformations? So they asked different organizations, how do they do this? And I'm glad to see here you got 58% and 54% are saying business value and the end user customer satisfaction. That's what Agile really prides itself on, and it's truly how you measure. Product scope over here, that again, that's kind of your old way of thinking. So as you start going over here over time, these numbers have gradually increased. These two numbers here should continue to increase. On-time delivery and quality, that again is going to be as your company matures within your DevOps elements. As I was mentioning before, value stream management, this is again something to be very much something to look into or keep an eye on. 78% of the respondents said that their organizations have some form of interest in value stream management. Here's the thing: is this is now becoming, I would say, the buzzword. So people are looking into it now. Are they experimenting? Or they just heard of it? So they're talking of, yeah, we're kind of interesting, but at the end of the day, do you really know what it is or how you do it? I would see this as continue to grow over the next couple of years, but to really deep dive into this and to really make it happen properly, it takes a lot of experience. And that's where, again, if you're very interested in this or want to learn more, reach out to 10 Agile. We have a number of people that are very skilled in this, number of years experience. I really look to see this. It's truly how you're going to gauge your companies, the concept to cash for your value stream. Just some quick highlights on some tools. So again, this came back in December. This came out. As you look here, you have when you look at the prior years, they're roughly the same. Your Kanban boards, your task boards, how different project tools. What is being used versus what's recommended. You might have heard Atlassian's Jira. You still have Excel prominent there. Microsoft Azure DevOps, Google Docs. Version 1, they have some very good tools. Microsoft Project, that within itself, as you move to Agile, it becomes too cumbersome to keep track with. So what I did here was, even though this is in the report, I took a different view of more recent reports because of what's come out, again, with the COVID. But before I get there, so in April, the Magic Quadrant, Gartner came out with their enterprise agile planning tools. And I wanted to highlight this in case you're kind of looking at like different things you might be interested in, or looking for information on. The leaders in the market, Atlassian, they have a whole tool suite. There's pros and cons to a lot of what they have. Plainview, Target Process has some very good program increment and mind mapping tools. CollabNet version 1. So this now, since April, so they merged in, I think it was May, and became digital AI. So they have some very good tools. So these two, I would say, go check out what they have. If you're looking into agile tools that where you're looking to bring how do you sticky note and dependencies across different programs, projects. Very good stuff here. Plainview, same thing. These three, great stuff. Atlassian, they're developing some things right now from talks I've had with them. Simmons down here, they're more specialized to aerospace. They got some really good stuff, but again, it's very, very specialized. It's, again, a niche player, but real good stuff. And then ServiceNow, Microsoft, they're coming. IBM also, I would see them moving more towards around here in the middle, based on what's going on with their machine learning and their AI. GitLab also, they've made tremendous strides in the past year with a lot of their product development. So I would see them moving up also. So when we go back 2 slides, and that's why I didn't spend too much time on it, there's really the pre versus a May survey that came out. And when you really look at what people were using versus where the trend is or what's really happening, Slack, that's your chat ops. I mentioned that before. Email, very high here. Jira is your tracking tool. MS Teams also. Google Hangouts in the chat. So here's your video. Zoom is only at 13% back in March, right? You only go, what's that, March? 2 months, not even 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Video conferencing moves to 67%. I'm sure we're all on enough video calls, but that's the new trend, and it's going to be. You have the human factor of, you're not going to be probably in the office all the time as things move to more remote or some sort of hybrid office/remote model as the world dramatically changes. Your coworkers that might have been sitting next to you, you're now working predominantly online, or maybe your new coworkers are across the globe. That trend is going to start evolving very rapidly, if it already hasn't, depending on what field you're in. Collaboration tools here is at 57%. That again, it covers quite a few different elements here. Telemedicine, this is interesting. This is at 11%. It doesn't even show up on here. I think it was like 0.1 or something. Telemedicine, if you're thinking of it from this perspective, in the past, you might have called the doctor, went in and said, okay, you meet with them. So that's time out of pocket, driving there, sitting in the waiting room, and then maybe they say, okay, you got a cold. Now what's happening is doctors are actually doing pre-screening calls, whether or not you even have to leave your house. A lot of positives there. Telemedic is one company that is growing dramatically there, but this is also going to, as 5G and the virtual headsets and everything starts really taking strides. I see this dramatically growing to 20-30%. This is going to be a big field that's going to happen. Learning management software, that's going to grow. It's already happening. So security software, 41%. You don't even see it over here. And that's again what I was talking about with, your DevSecOps. Black Duck, that they're making a major. Their company. They're making a major play right now in this space, as well as a number of others. And again, I'm sorry. The state of software development report that came out in March. So that's where I'm pulling this from. If you're in IT and really are interested in that, we could also send you that link. It's a different report that came out. They also had within it kind of where they saw their tools. And And again, it goes into the breakdowns here that I was briefly going into. So another one I ran a couple days ago, but just curious from your perspective, in this new normal that we're calling it, you're fully remote, working from home model, where do you see yourself now as opposed to 3 months ago within your Agile adoption? Has it increased? Has it stayed the same? No change because the company's still trying to figure it out. Feel free to throw it in the chat box real quick, and then I'll give you some thoughts on that. So again, a small sampling from a couple of weeks ago. The respondents I got were 50% of the poll. I think it was around 7,500 people. Said they've increased their Agile adoption. Now that can mean a lot of different things. I didn't go deeper on it, but just from the aspect of, maybe daily stand-ups has become the norm when you might have had a team meeting once every 2 weeks. How do you stay engaged now? Sending emails to people back and forth when you're not, you can't get up and talk to the person next to you isn't really, it doesn't work. So it's really the real world experiment is unfolding, but thought this was interesting as opposed to when I looked at it kind of as a cross section against the very beginning of the report, because this shows a different slice. Again, it's a small microcosm of the state of where things are. Digital AI actually, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, they ran a sampling from their original report. I think it was across 300 representatives trying to get another slice of, well, how is it compared to back in December? Trying to come up with, COVID's going on, how has the world changed and whatnot. And they're saying 55% of the companies plan to increase Agile in the next 12 to 14 months. That's a 13% increase over the original survey just 5 months ago. So, the need quickly has gone from people that are already responding to this report, where they already have their finger on the pulse of Agile, to now saying, wait a second, the boats left the building. We got to get on board with this quickly, or we're not going to survive here. 43% of the organizations said their momentum for Agile adoption has increased in the last 90 days. That's another 15% increase, which is really significant. 33% say they've increased, expanded their adoption in the last 90 days. So just because of what's taken place in the last 3 years, last 4 months, look how quickly this has moved. And again, this is across a sampling of about 300 different organizations from the original 1,100. So this is pretty significant. It's a good snapshot, and it's going to be very interesting as next year's report comes out. And they did the same thing across the one that I showed you earlier with the reasons for adopting. And as you see here, it increased 70%. Same ones I was pulling out before. Your alignment, your delivery, speed to market, these all jumped. It's very interesting. Again, you can go back and you can look this against the original, but everything is pointing to the true, got to start moving or we're not going to make it. Coming back to this original slide, when I look at it how's Agile, where's it going? I look at it, this is the future. It's huge. It's very, very, very bright. The overall survey results indicate that Agile is still largely confined to development, IT, and operations. But because of the state of the world and where things are headed, there's no question that it's going to grow and adapt as you hit operations, as you hit finance, as you hit marketing, as you hit all the other sectors of what makes organizations strong. Business agility, that's the next element that I see that will grow. It has to, but it really requires an effective alignment and coordination across all the areas of an organization. If you don't have that, it's not going to work. And then you're really just stuck as an IT shop. So as I look to next year, I expect to see organizations report greater expansion into those areas. I see it associating in building and deploying and maintaining their software, as they're doing. Value stream management and business agility. The two of them really have to work in tandem from a fully holistic view for all this to really get to the next level. So those are two areas that I'm really looking at. The DevSecOps is going to grow. There's no question. It's a matter of how well it's implemented. State of Agile, I'm going to see that. I truly think that's going to go up at least another 10% on the next report. And again, kind of what I was just speaking to right here on the last slide. So from that, does anyone have, I'll open it up to the floor. Does anyone have any questions? All right, thank you.